Hello and welcome to Wikipedia Weekly Network. Here where Albin Larsson and I, Jan Ainali, are editing Wikidata Live. How are you doing, Albin?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. It's nice to be starting this and it's still bright outside.
Indeed, even here.
Yes. But I guess you're more north than I am, so
Yeah,
it will be bright later now
by now indeed, yeah.
after the solstice. Today we're having something a little bit special planned. We have been talking about going back to the basics, and Albin, you realized there was one really basic thing we don't really have touched upon in any episode. What are we going to
Now,
get today?
we're going to look at data types, and I think we have touched on most of the data types like individually. So they are like the basic building blocks of Wikidata, or this almost the basic at least. And I think we have touched upon most of them when we have done a particular topic. Like you
Yeah.
end up working with the lexeme data types when you're hacking on lexemes or showing off lexemes, but we have never gone like, here are all the data types, which is a little bit of the plan for today.
And where, for people who's not really understanding what we're talking about, where do one find the data types? Or what
That,
is the data types?
that is a great question, both of them. First of all, where do you find them? You find them in multiple places, but like the single source of truth is special data types.
And let's see
It's a
if we
special
can.
page over at Wikidata. Yeah, let's see here.
There we have it.
Yes. And you can see up in the URL there, it's special list data types. And I think that this is actually a great intro to what are these data types. They are essentially what values can you put into a Wikidata item. And you cannot put any type of data in there. You can, for example, not say if something is true or false. You cannot put
No.
that
Yeah.
binary data in there. But you can put a comments file in there,
Yes.
or a quantity, a timestamp, and plenty of things.
Yeah. And these are sort of, this has evolved over time. We have gotten a few more since Wikidata was started. I think there's still some data types under discussion or waiting a technical solution.
Yeah.
But these are the ones we have for now, and they're 18 if we counted it right. We counted it a couple of times to see
Yes.
how many, because there's also a help page, help data type, where right now I think there were only 17 in the table here. There was one missing, and now I
Yes.
forgot which one were missing.
I think it is entity schema that's missing from the
Yes, that's
table.
correct. Yes. So in the table here on the right side behind our faces, maybe we'll switch view for a second here.
So in the
These are,
second table, there should be
yeah,
entity schema as well.
yes. And this table is also a little bit different because here they separated on the built-in and extra, whereas on special list data types, here is just everybody in one long list. And
Yes.
what are the difference between those two tables here?
So to Wikidata, there isn't a lot of difference. The difference consists of the first set being provided by Wikibase itself, the Wikibase extensions that essentially is the core of Wikidata, while the second list here comes from various extensions, which are all installed here on Wikidata. But if you, for
Yes.
example, fire up your own Wikibase, you wouldn't necessarily get those by default.
Yeah. And also, if you fire up your own Wikibase, you won't see that you have this many of each of them, because these are, of course, the properties we have defined on Wikidata. So we have a bit over 10,000 external identifiers and so forth. And some where we have very few of them.
Yeah. But it's surprising. I haven't really looked at that list before, and it's interesting to see that quantity is the third most used one. And
Yes.
string or URL or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
what we planned to do today was a little bit go through this list from the top to the bottom and talk a little bit about each, but not too long because there are 18 of them and we're only here for an hour. And Albin and I have sort of prepared half of the list each so that we should be able to get through this. Yes, exactly. What is an URL, an identifier, year shape, and 18? Yes. So that's our plan, and let's switch back to
and people in
this
the
here.
chat, do you have a favorite data type?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Yes, a
Oh, and
favorite data
to
type.
you as well, Jan.
I like the item data type because that's the one. We're gonna come to that. That links to another item on Wikidata, and to me, that's sort of a little bit of the core of linked open data to be able to link to other things. Mahir likes the musical notation.
Oh,
All right, that's a very special one. And of course, that one might be very useful because that can actually produce something, music. So I was going to start here. And the first we come up to Commons Media. And that is then, of course, a link to a Commons file. And it could be any file. It's not only images, even though one of the properties for this is image, but we also have video and audio. And I think for some of them, you can even put in the documents. You might get a property constraint warning, but I think technically you can add them. But I was going to use this item. Here we have something. Some property can exist with two data types. Yes. For if there is no item for one, we can have an author string. Oh, you love the coordinates. Those are great as well. And I think Hanover here actually has 8 of the data types of my 9. So I'm going to use this as an example. And I'm going to take this in this order. And we'll just have a look at an example of how it will look. So we'll first scroll down, and immediately here we see logo image, which here says Hanover logo 2024 SVG and logo image. If you go to a property, you can see just below the terms box, you see the data type. And here you see Commons media file. And also on this, it's good because we get an example that we have the image property, which is also a Commons media file. So we have multiple properties of the same data type. And of course, you can have all of them can have statements. And I think here we have pronunciation audio used as a qualifier and also with 2 different values. These are not separated well, though. I guess one is in French and one is in German. This is not great, I think. We should probably only have this one because this here it says Hanover German, and this is looks like it's, or no, maybe. Let's have a check. And then this, of course, links directly to Wikimedia Commons, which is very handy. No, it's language German. I was just, oh, maybe that's the username. This is the username. So this is made with Lingua Libre. So language username, what they say. So that's sort of very basic about the Commons media. You paste the string from Wikimedia Commons. So if we take one of these, yeah, so this is what you actually edit. Let's see if it loads. So it's just this string here that you edit. So you don't actually put the file in here, you just tell it what is the name on Commons. And then you would say this, but this I'm just going to cancel out from. So fairly straightforward with the Commons media files. Now have a look at one that is a little bit more complex, the geographic shape, which, as it says here, also kind of is a Commons media file, but it's a very special Commons media file. So we have treated this one a little bit differently, and they behave in Wikidata quite differently, and you can use them in very different ways. So, but I think we have a shape here. So let's scroll down a little bit on Hanover, and we'll get a proper example. These are the different kinds of coordinates. Oh, did I scroll too quickly here? Here we have it. So geoshape points to data:Hanover map. It doesn't show it here, but if we go to Wikimedia Commons, we can see that it's actually the shape of Hanover here defined. So this is a page in the data namespace. So it's not similar to these. The data namespace is, of course, a different beast altogether on Wikimedia Commons.
It's more like a regular page.
Yes, more like
It
a regular
contains
page.
text.
Yeah, and here we see a map, but if I press edit here, without going too much into it, we can see, I think, is this, the format is a JSON?
It's like JSON with embedded GeoJSON.
Yes. So that one comes here in the data here. We see the actual geometry. And then we have some extra stuff here where we can translate and categorize it.
And this is the data type that has the least properties.
Yes, that was only 3 of them.
Indeed. And I think at some point we have actually showed off all the 3 in the episode.
I think so too. And I think this one was the first one of them, the geoshape, because it's the very basic ones, where the other 2 are more specific ones. So that's the geoshape, the geographic shape. Then we have the tabular data, which is sort of a sibling to this, because it also points to a page on Wikimedia Commons in the data namespace. So let's see if we can find. This one is a little bit trickier to find. I think I'm going to do a Control F here for a .tab. There we have
what an amazing item you have found with all of this.
Yes. and here we can see tabular population, and we also have population. And this one, I think, arose sort of like of a, well, we can see the real need here, that if you add a statement for every year, it's a lot. And if we go to the file on Wikimedia Commons, that's more of have the look of a spreadsheet. And here we also have a little bit more specified. We can have male and female population criterion used, all right, determination method. So this is sort of the qualifiers.
It looks like someone made a SparkL query and took it from there.
Yes. Also, since this is yearly, but if you're thinking about, oh, I want to, yes, here we have a half year. You want to add something that's even more higher density of the values, so to speak. Then you might think, oh, maybe we should add a data file instead of Commons, because it's not great on to have these long. And also, I think we have a max size on the items, so we might run into that. I think we have run into that during COVID, when the cases was added every day, that spiraled really quickly. So that's the tabular data. So we have 3 here, sort of, all right, these all 3 points to Wikimedia Commons. Then we come to something differently. This is the URL. And I think the most common one, I would guess, is the official website, which is of the data type URL, simply like that. And what we add here is a URL. I don't know. Do we have something else that if I would not have the, if I would say here test, would that, no, I won't dare.
I don't think there is a lot of magic in that one.
No, maybe not magic, maybe property constraints saying this doesn't
Yeah.
fit, but not magic with the actual thing, because that's also just a string in a way. And then the URL, the data type, gives some clues afterwards, after it's saved. So you can actually, this one gets clickable immediately. And then we have another one that when you're looking on it on Wikidata, you might not always figure out why these are different, but they are very different. And we're going to scroll down, and these are actually grouped, the external identifiers, all in the bottom of the items. So I think if we scroll down, I scrolled too quickly, I think. We're going to have a header here, identifiers. And then I think everything below here are external identifier of that type. And this looks like it is a link, but it's not a URL. And if I edit this, it's just the value.
And here there are so much magic going on.
Here there are magic. And I think we use a property here called, I forget the name, URL formatter or something like that. Formatter URL,
Yeah.
which specify how we should build the link using that value.
And
So
we have
that's
another special property like that, which is for like, how do I want this to be represented in the Wikidata RDF, which affects how you query it. So there is so much magic going on here.
Yes.
And a few more stuff like that.
Yeah. And these were the ones that were most plentiful. There are over 10,000 external identifiers. And you can see even on this item we have, is it 30, 40, even more? Half of the item is identifiers. And basically this points to other databases.
And in front of
about
you
the
have
same
a
thing.
quite good example, because it's one that isn't a link. The one that's deprecated.
Yes. So here's a deprecated value, which is not a link. Yes. And Nicola says that there is a few identifiers. And websites no longer existing. Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of historic identifiers.
Yes.
Those are great.
Those can be great. Indeed, to find something in archives or in older sources, how they are referred to. We'll jump back to here. And here we come to my favorite, the item, which is basically the ones that are, I don't know if these are the ones with the most, oh, that would be interesting, most kind of statements. But these are the ones where we, let's go over, head of government is a good one. So this Stefan Shostok, if I click that, we come to the item for Stefan Shostok. So what we're adding here, we see Stefan Shostok, and I can write Stefan Shostok, but I think what's actually getting stored is, of course, this QID. So if I copy it here and paste it in, we're gonna see Stefan Shostok. And this is what to me, makes Wikidata magic in the whole, because it's the thing that enables the rabbit hole to go from place to a person to a work they wrote and so forth to another place where it was published, and you just click around on Wikidata. And I'm not sure. That one is, to me, seems so basic. There's not so much to say. It's the simplest one. Then we have the difficult one, which is sort of a sibling to the item, because as we can see here, both have the Wikibase entity ID as what they're storing, and we don't have any statements of this on Hannover. But if we head to, I think, to almost any property, we might have one. Yes, so related Wikidata property is one that has the data type property.
And I guess that's the most common one?
Yeah, and there's also the inverse property. That's also
Right.
quite common. But related, it's probably more common because you have several statements of that one. And then we can see here, when I hover, we see this actually links to another property and not to an item. But in other regards, it's behaving very similarly. So if I click here, I go to this property. And I think what's saved here is also is P3096 there. And where were we? Then we're coming down to Nicolas' favorite, the globe coordinate. And this one is very different from the other ones in what we're storing. And you can see here we're storing basically 4 different things. We have the latitude and longitude, and then on which globe, because we can store coordinates on more than just the Earth. We have the moon. Do we also have Mars already?
I'm quite sure.
Yes. And
And I
then
bet a few more.
maybe a few more. Yes. Oh, we can see the list. Yes, here. I'm guessing this is for Mars. Yes. But let's take a look on one of these, because here we have a few different ones. And here we can also see why we have multiple. So coordinate location is sort of like the center point. Oh yes, we're getting agreements here. We have had Mars at least, and then Nicola thinks we have 15 globes. That's quite a lot. He'll check. So coordinate location is very basically where something is, but then we figured out, oh, maybe we would want the most eastern point, northern, and so forth. But they're all of the same data type. So if we look at this one, it's the geographic coordinates, the data type there. And if you edit these, we see the latitude and longitude here. And then we see the precision here being, I think this is being deduced from the numbers we have. The number of points is set in. So if you just put 19,936 on, then yeah, you're going to see this one changes. But you can set this manually. So you can say, oh, this is how precise I want to do this. Which might be very handy for if you're setting a coordinate for something that is large and it's kind of arbitrary which point you choose. Like what is the center of an oblong city or something with a weird shape. Maybe you don't want to weight it, or maybe you don't have a source. Then it might be odd to take something very, very precise.
Is that the intention of precision? Isn't that accuracy?
Mm, yes, it is.
I think precision is more intended if you have a margin of error rather
So
than the size or shape of the object.
yes,
So
yes, you're
if
correct.
you have a GPS, for example, and you're taking the center of a glacier, then it's essentially plus minus 10 meters at least because it's a GPS, so to say,
Yeah,
or something like that. However, given how this works, that it tries to set this manually, what it means in practice is that when people copy paste in things from like OpenStreetMap or Wikipedia or such, we get a much higher precision than the
yes,
actual value.
yeah.
Um,
What I haven't figured out is how to change the globe.
let's see what the chat has to say about this one.
Yes, or because that
I think is it controlled by the property?
is it controlled? So there's a separate property for yes, no, for Earth. Please note. I
We get in the chat here as well that you cannot change it in the UI.
oh. So high. So if I go to, now I don't know any name of any lunar craters. Is there a Pacific crater?
Yeah, and it's not a property. It's
Ah,
which makes sense because I remember you can change it, but it's hidden.
yes.
Here we got Q520.
Q520. So now let's see. For did we have a coordinate there? Special reference.
Yeah, but that's like equal to put in like the reference system we use here on Earth.
Yeah, so we're not changing the globe in the coordinate itself then.
No, you cannot even see it, right? That it's the moon we're talking about, other than for this qualifier.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And what did we have left in the list? I think we have the monolingual text, which is different from all the other things that we had with the string here, because this one actually it says, well, it basically has two strings, where one of the string is the value and the other one is the language code. And I think we have a couple of these on Hannover. I think in the top here. Here we have some, for example, the demonym. And if I edit this, we see it like this. So this is the value, and here it is a language. And it says mandatory, and I think we're gonna get an error if we try to save this without. And if I start writing here, I will actually get a drop-down list of languages. And then it sneakily disappears until you click and wait a little bit again. So this one can be a little bit tricky if you're too quick.
And it's important to note here, we got something similar in labels and alias and descriptions, but it's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing,
So
even though,
we aren't
yes,
discussing those here when we're talking about data types, but they are very related as well.
yes.
Um,
I'm gonna cancel out of there, and I'm gonna see. And here we have official name. This is a very common one of these. and it takes a little while before it comes up. So you have to, and I think does, yeah. So if I haven't got the value here, it won't even let me publish. It's disabled the publish here. So would if I add DE here, now it does isn't. Oh, maybe because it's the same. If I change
Yeah.
this to SV, because it is the same in SV, but no, it's not the official name. Now it turns blue. So now I could have say this, but this would have been wrong then, because official name is what the name in its language. So we're going to cancel out there. And I think that was just about my half of the list. So we're going to do a little bit of switcheroo here. And I'm going to remove this and add this.
Thank you very much. And my first one then becomes quantity. And I happens to have like a favorite property when it comes to quantity. So I'm gonna go straight into that with an example. Here we go. Municipality of Sweden. And we got this lovely quantity value here, which also have the property quantity. This is so nice. It's the data type quantity, it's the property quantity, and that's not the only reason it's my favorite. I also really like it because it's incredibly useful. The ability that we can state that there are 290 municipalities in Sweden means that we can, only using this item, write the query that is like instance of municipality, and whatever we get back should have whatever is in quantity, and we can have that return, yes, this is correct, no, this is false, which is a super useful thing when you write maintenance queries. And that's it. But we can actually look at it because it's a little bit special, because similarly to monolingual text, but very differently. So we got the actual quantity, so numeric value, and then we got a unit, which is similarly with languages, it's just a Wikidata item, but it's optional. Here we can actually write this. If I would make a change here, we could save it. So that's super interesting. So let's see if we cannot go to.
It's super flexible as well.
Indeed, and I guess that's the reason it's the third most used one, which did surprise me a little bit. So I wonder if these examples are simply because what is a good one? Collection or exhibition site, number of works, all of these are blank ones. Portion is an interesting one. What is a good example of one with
Duration?
duration? And let's use this feature here. And let's go to the example.
There you have some nice ones.
Yes, and we don't need to leave the examples here. So we got here duration, unit, day. And it's even slightly problematic because I think the suggestions here gets widely. You see here, they suggest any item to you, which is sometimes rather annoying, but it's also just showcase how incredibly flexible this is. I think when you edit that with the language one, Jan, it at least filter those out for you. It doesn't
Yes.
do anything like this here. Let's jump back. That's quantity. Maybe it's my favorite data type as well. But I do also a reason like you, John, that item is a very nice one. And I don't think we have used this sheeting before, so I'm gonna use it now. The data type string. We only say one thing here. and that's the actual string. Um, and let's go with inventory number. That's a good one, especially given the name. It's an inventory number, but they usually consist of a prefix. Um, Rijksmuseum, for example, we have a prefix. We actually have two prefixes here, and then an actual number. And this is simply a string, a series of characters, um, and not much more than that. We also got a question in the chat if quantity of municipalities of Sweden should have the unit municipalities of Sweden, and no, because I guess that doesn't make sense because it's just the number, it's the actual quantity. So quantity should never have any unit. It's just a plain number. If we had 10,000 municipalities, you could possibly have a unit if you wrote there is 1,000 and this is the base of 10 or something like that. But of course, we would try to avoid that.
Yeah, and it would
Um,
also be some kind of inception because that will be a link to itself.
but that's okay in Wikidata, isn't it?
It could be, yes, but it's
We have
it's a little bit weird.
we have a couple of SparkL people in the chat. How many Wikidata items link to themselves?
I think there's quite a lot, and
Yeah.
most often it's probably maybe not. That's a separate ontology discussion. I think let's not dive too deep in that.
But it's a fun one.
Yes,
I hope someone in the chat can have an answer.
it's allowed to do it, and it also makes sure for making it wrong. Yes, oh yes, and here's a one where we actually model it for countries. We do that.
Oh yes. Um, we got time. I'm gonna need to move on here.
Yes,
Time. Time is one of the most, especially as someone would develops on top of Wikidata sometimes, it's the most painful one of them all. And it's not because Wikidata is particularly time painful. It's just because time in general is such an incredibly painful concept. And
yes,
this illustrates very, very well why. We store the actual value in time in a particular format. We store the time zone, of course. We store something called before that's given by the parameter. We store something after. We have the actual precision. And in the UI, you would see that the precision is calculated from what you type. So if you write 2013, it will have precision year, and so on and so on. Of course, that does not always work. You can write a historic year and the precision is actually much less than the year and so on. And then we got a calendar model as well. Which calendar model does this particular time use? Uh, so most countries have some type of cut-off dates or even multiple cut-off dates where they switch calendars. And sometimes people kept using the same calendar for a couple of years. So around those dates, you always need to double and triple check things. And this is why time is so painful and why we need to store this many things. Of course, some of the ones we see the most are date of birth, date of death, inception, and so on. And then we also see some of the articles, I think, pop up here. Year of publication of scientific name for taxon, or actually that's just the taxons. But publication date here at number 7. But let's go down to the examples just to show off the UI for all of this. Here we have a bunch of them. Here it's actually kind of nice because it's a 1819s with a S behind it, so the precision becomes decade. If I change this, it updates to year. The calendar is a default. We could set this manually, and it lets us pick one of the two. Let's close this down so I don't make an accidental edit here. Similarly here, we would see a different precision. We do have a century down here, so let's open that as well. Precision century. And it is quite smart. You can like paste in all kinds of formats in here and it will figure it out for you, what you're trying to write, which is incredibly useful because to make dates sometimes even more complicated, we of course write them differently across the world. Incredibly painful. Wikidata does a pretty good job. Although I think in this area there are quite a few requests over at Fabricator for changes and improvements. But that's time. Now we get to some of the fun ones. Some of the extra ones that we found that they are enabled by extensions. And musical notations is one of my, I can't say it's a favorite one of mine because I'm not good enough on this. But it is one that really showcases what you can do with custom data types. I have a property here in mind, and this is really cool because this looks very much like an image. Of course, because I'm zoomed in, this doesn't do great on mobile. Uh, and this is an image as well. If we would right click here, it says save image for me. Not sure if it shows up on screen, but this extension generates an image, but it generates it from a syntax, a notation. Um, and I think this is Lillipond or
Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Yeah.
which I do not know. I know some of the actual notations, um, but I do not know how to write this. But it's super powerful because it lets you write this and it generates an image from it. And I don't think it gives me any warnings if I would break this or something like that. But it's just incredibly interesting. Um, yes, I get to confirm that it's Lilliput. I'm not sure how this work actually for things like historical musical quotation. It would be super interesting because that's actually something I know a little bit about. So I could enjoy playing with this. Other than that, it's not used on a lot of. It got a couple of a handful of properties, of course. Um, Super interesting one. Sadly, it's not in my field of work to any great extent. Maybe we should have someone on here one day to show off this a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here's another one I really like, the entity schema one.
Oh,
I
you
do.
missed the mathematical.
Oh, I missed them. Oh, that would be terrible. Um, it's also a similarly great one. I have an item in mind here. The hover scene formula. So the formula you use to calculate distances on Earth between 2 points. Because the Earth is not round nor flat, which means we need a formula for it. It's a little bit more complicated. And it generates formulas like this. Looks really, really good. You can also copy paste them. Um, and under the hood, it looks like this. And I think this is a subset of LaTeX, similar to what we use on Wikipedia. Um, Again, this I do know how to write a little bit. Uh, Similarly to the past one, this is also from extension. It doesn't do any particular validation here. Um, but it just outputs this super accessible expressions.
What
Uh,
does the warning say?
the warning is a property warning
Ah,
because
ah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
should
yeah.
have something else here. I opened this item before, tried to figure it out what this actually means statement in defining formula. It doesn't make complete sense to me. Um, but I didn't do too much research into it. It probably makes sense. Okay, I almost skipped that one. Now we got it. Entity schema. That's also possibly a favorite of mine because similarly to the quantity one, it lets you do some like automatic validation of things. I have an item in mind here. So let's go to, I think we might even have edited this one here live at one point. So we got orienteer here, someone doing orienteering. And then we got entity schema for this class. And class is very much terminology from the linked data or RDF world. What it means is that things that are an instance of orienteer, or in this case, not an instance of, but for example, uses the occupation one, or sport, then that's the class. And it's essentially lets you say that, okay, if someone thing is of this class, for example, this is human, it should both match the one for human, and if it then also have sport orienteering or occupation orienteer, then it should also validate against that. So if we go here, we can see that this should have an instance of everything that is an orienteer. It should have a given name, the regular ones we find for humans, but then also, for example, it should have the occupation orienteer. That's how we model it. Here is more stuff, but for example, something we don't have for humans in general is country for sport. It's something all orienteers should have. It should also have sport orienteering. It can have member of sports team. Um, Here there are new comments. I'm not sure exactly what those two are. And here we got some external properties those might have. Yeah, so that again, if you have that data on an item, it lets you do that type of validation semi-automatically. Then we got a bunch of them piled together here. And I think we're gonna need to explore them a little bit together. But essentially we have two parts here. We have the ones pointing to Galaxy. It's quite similar to the ones you saw like property or entity schema or item. They point internally to something in Wikidata, something with their own page. If we go up and click one, combines Lexeme is a good one. If we do take the Lexeme flower pot, for example, we can see that it combines flower and pot. And similarly to if we pointed to an item, which we do up here, this points to an item, this points to Lexeme. Very neat, very useful. And this can also exist, not particularly combines Lexeme, but a property with a data type can sit on items, for example, or even on a property or any other data type as long as there is no constraint saying no. We also got the form and sense ones. They are a little bit interesting because they still have the data type Wikibase entity ID, just like the other ones that I just mentioned that points internally within Wikidata. But as you know, they do not have their own pages. They have pages on Elixir. So if we jump into one of them, then we can, for example, see, let's do object form here. And we have no examples on that one. Let's not do that. Here we got a couple of examples. Or do we? Yes, we do. So the generational suffix that people tend to have, they point to a form. And what we can see here, if we go here to the URL, we can see that it has this sharp sign in the end. It points us straight to a particular form. And within Wikidata, this is kind of like an entity ID, but represented here, it's just another part of the page. This, of course, becomes super powerful, but that's how it works. That's what it points to. It only stores that. It stores this part, so it's the lexeme followed by the numeric identifier of the form. And the sends work, if I'm not mistaken, the exact same way. Let's see if we cannot bring up an example. Translation is good. Let's jump into real one. Let's pick a different one. Water. Census, again, we got this kind of similarly to item page, which is split into external identifier and the rest. But this looks a lot more like its own individual item page on one of those. But similar again, the URL is different. We can see it ending with a hash and the S1 for sense, pointing us to lexeme number and the first sense. And I'm gonna check, are there more? Yes, there are more senses here. So it lets you show off these particular things. And they can contain so much data. Water here was a great example. There's just so much data here which lives kind of on their own subtype of lexeme. And I think with that we got through them. And we did. I raced at the end there. Have you changed your mind, Jan, about which one is your favorite?
No, I think still item is the my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting with the what we see in the list here in parentheses, where it says string, quantity, time. We have quite a few of them that are strings, and we have quite a few of them that are Wikibase entity IDs. And then
Yes.
there are the rest of them are oddballs.
Indeed. And essentially all the oddball ones are the ones that can store more than one thing.
Yes.
Because the string ones only store the string. The Wikibase entity ID only store the Wikibase entity ID.
Yeah. Which also essentially is a string, but I think to not be confused with other strings, to get some magic to it.
Isn't everything a string?
Isn't
Every
everything a string?
U shape is just a string.
Yes, that's true. Yes. So the
It's
question
the
is,
string theory, I think. Did we lose Jan or did we lose me? Yes, we did lose Jan. That's not good because he's also in control here of the stream. Yes, too many data types. I cannot show your comments here. He's completely in control. And we don't have him on. Oh.
Firefox crashed.
Out. So there was too many data types.
Too many data types. Yeah, no, I don't think that was the data types that I have had a trouble lately with Firefox crashing. Uh, Maybe not daily, but often enough to it becoming a bother.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was what we wanted to do. We want to do a very dedicated episode about the data types. So this might be some sort of reference point, perhaps even.
Yeah. Maybe each and every data type deserve their own episode.
Well, then we have 18 episodes planned.
But then we would need to invite someone, I think, for some of them.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And I think Nicola is ahead of us.
Yeah.
We'll be back
He
in
has somewhere to
probably,
be.
yeah, probably in 2 weeks again. And until then, happy editing.
Happy ending.